Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro RPG. And at the end of another week, and the end of another poll, we've got a very clear winner with Bug City for Shadowrun 2nd Edition. Now, I'm very glad that won for personal reasons, which I'll reveal on the desktop in a wee second. But, as usual, I'll be back at the end of the video with some other channel-related stuff and some other poll-related stuff. But a little reminder that if you'd like to help the channel out, or you'd like to see these videos a week early, then there's a link to our Patreon in the description down below. So if you could check that out, it'd be very useful to the channel. But I hope to see you at the end of the video. So, this is Bug City for Shadowrun 2nd Edition. And this came out in 1994. Very specifically, it came out in February 1994, because I remember it coming out very keenly, because I know where I bought this book. It was a very specific point in my life, and a very specific point in the world. You see, when I was 22, I decided I want to see some of the world. So I saved up a bunch of money, basically every penny I had, for about a year. And then, the day after my 23rd birthday, in February 1994, I got on a plane to America, and I visited the country. I stayed in a bunch of places, but basically I planned out the first 2 nights where I was going to stay. And then for the rest of the 2 months I was there, I just got on a plane, travelled to a city, stayed there a few days, explored a bit. I saw a bunch of Minnesota, then I went down to the south and I saw Arizona, Utah, Nevada, a little bit of California, just travelling around, seeing some of America. I didn't see the big cities, I didn't see Los Angeles, I didn't see New York, but I was kind of getting a taste of what America was from smaller places. I stayed in lots of small towns. But where I bought this book was in the role-playing game shop right down in the basement of the Crossroads Plaza Mall in Salt Lake City. I remember it very clearly. And the weird thing was, I'd taken books with me because I was traveling by myself. And one of the books I'd taken to read was the Shadowrun novel Burning Bright. And this book links straight into that. Burning Bright is one of the best Shadowrun novels. In my opinion, it is the best. But it's about a magical detective looking for a missing kid. And the first half of the book is about him searching for this kid. He's using spells, he's using ritual magic to track the boy's blood, because the boy is the child of the owner of one of the big companies in Chicago, and the ritual magic helps him locate things. But then the second half of the book is they find he's been taken by insect spirits. Now, insect spirits, unlike other spirits in Shadowrun, don't just manifest, they manifest themselves through people, putting their spirits into form and making these insect form and flesh form bodies. Depending on how much they look human or how much they look insect, they become flesh form or insect form, and they're a bit like aliens. So you're grabbing people off the streets, you're manifesting an insect spirit through them, and you're making them become an insect spirit, or a flesh form insect spirit. And then they have big nests. They act like insects. Now, this book details the events after that novel, because the nests hatch and Chicago falls to the insect spirits. And that changed the world of Shadowrun. Now, this was the first book which changed the world of Shadowrun. Before that, all the adventures, everything was very much set in the world as it was in 2050 when Shadowrun 1st Edition came out. This is when they started releasing sourcebooks, which altered everything. So we now know, if you follow the Shadowrun timeline, that Bug City's passed. It has ended. The government has taken the city back by releasing a fat bacteria which kills spirits, essentially, and kills magic. The world has changed in many other ways. Obviously, we had the Dunkelson becoming president and then getting assassinated, and the Dunkelson Secrets books coming out. But this was the first time that Shadowrun decided to change the world through a source book. But anyway, let's have a look at the back cover. In the darkness, something terrible breeds. For years, a shadow war has raged against the Universal Brotherhood and its savage masters, parasitic insect spirits that feed on human hosts. Now Chicago has become the final battleground in the war against the bugs. Overrun by the horrible predators, the city has been quarantined by the UCAS military, leaving its inhabitants to fend for themselves, while other solutions are considered. Hundreds of thousands remain trapped within the walled containment zone, at war with brutal gangs and ruthless warlords that rage unchecked, and the unnatural menace that threatens them all. Bug City is a Shadowrun sourcebook that picks up where the novel Burning Bright left off. It provides a detailed description of life in the containment zone, and contains game information on the changes in Chicago's physical and magical nature, profiles of the city's important residents, and expanded rules for the city's terrible ravages, the insect spirits themselves. Now this became a fascinating setting for Shadowrun, but the book itself continues the story of Burning Bright, and I really like the way this book's laid out. So we've got, attention, by order of the UCAS federal government, the city of Chicago is quarantined and under curfew. For further notice, remain in your homes. If you must travel, do so only in groups. Please monitor your radios for additional information. And obviously lots of cockroaches and bugs swarming across it, with a biohazard symbol. And we've got lovely artwork throughout of the desolation of a city which has been destroyed, both by the insect spirits and the fight against them, because for the first time in Shadowrun as well, a nuclear weapon gets set off. In the original Shadowrun novels, the Great Ghost Dance destroyed all nuclear weapons. It made them inactive. So nuclear weapons weren't a major thing in the Shadowrun world, but to fight the bugs, one gets set off in Chicago. Now, it's a small tactical nuke, so it doesn't absolutely wreck the city, but the city is heavily damaged. And then, of course, nobody's repairing anything because the bugs are ravaging their way around it. So we've got the credits and contents. We've got the introduction, saying how this has changed the world. Then we've got Welcome to Shadowland. Now, Shadowland's the big Shadowrunner database in the Shadowrun world. And I do like the way they've got this formatted, where you've got different books which are en route, and different files which are available. And these are the source books which have already come out, and those source books which they're planning to release in the next little while. So we've got things like the Aslan source book is en route. The Knight Errant Corporate Security Training Manual is en route, but Paranormal Animals of Europe is out. I love the way that's formatted. It's just kind of giving you a clue to what's coming out soon for Shadowrun. Really well done. We've got in the introduction, in-world. Basically, the hackers, the deckers of Shadowrun, are putting this file together for Shadowrunners. And we've got here, this is how it started. So it's got chat logs of people in Chicago as the insects erupted. Now, as everything goes on, it details as the Matrix, the internet, is attacked by the government. The government don't want information getting in and out, so they attack the servers physically by blowing them up, and they also release lots of viruses. So the chat logs become corrupted. And then, as things get worse and worse, we get the entire Matrix collapsing. A computer virus against the Chicago LTG is in progress. Please log off immediately and purge all files downloaded within the last 36 hours. The Chicago Matrix is shutting down in 12 seconds. And then we've got as the deckers reactivate it, because there's no government left in the city. It's been walled off by this point. And people have got it. They're finally getting information through, but it's still very, very corrupted. And they start discussing what's happening, people are seeing insects, etc. And a mage is advising them. But the system collapses again, because it's still infested with viruses. So the deckers go on further, and they set up their own Matrix servers. And they start discussing the situation, what's happened, what's going on. Because these are computer users. These are people who want to sit in their basement on the internet all the time. So they don't know what's going on outside, and other people keep advising them. As I said, lovely post-apocalyptic artwork, Shadowrunners fighting giant insect spirits. And then we get to the point where the nuclear bomb is set off. It's gotten bright outside, but the light's almost violet, and there's a loud noise, a roar, and the Matrix crashes once again.
That last segment was logged early in the morning of 1st of October 2055. The event in question, of course, the Cermet Blast, has been described anything from a mega hellfire spell to a sub-tactical nuclear weapon. And then the book goes on detailing. So it starts off detailing what Chicago was like before. There's still lots of lovely artwork, but this is talking about Chicago as a city. What happened before, what corporations were there, how you would travel to it, the normal stuff. The layout of the city, it shows the containment zone put onto the normal map. It details Chicago's history, what large corporations are active there. Just all the standard Shadowrun stuff for a setting. The noose. We go on to, I believe, the Shattergraves are mentioned. The Shattergraves are where a large tower collapsed, and the government, instead of tidying up, just kind of declared it a grave and left it. They didn't do the big tidy up because of everything else that was going on in the world. And this being the Shadowrun world, where magical creatures exist, ghouls moved in to eat the dead bodies. Well, ghouls are actually quite efficient fighters against insect spirits, because they are magical beings themselves. Anyway, it goes through the corporations, the crime actors, and then we reach living in oblivion. So it starts discussing the wall around Chicago, the towers, guards around it, whether you can get in or out by water, whether you can get through by magic. Detailing the containment zone costs. So because the containment zone is is blocked off from the rest of the world, prices have gone through the roof. You know, magical weapons, you can't even get them. Aircraft, definitely can't get them because they'll get shot down. We've got disorganized crime, street talk, getting help, the big bug sleep. One of the effects of the nuclear blast, because insect spirits are coming through from the ethereal planes to the real world. As in the Shadowrun world, the magic level is going up. Insect spirits are starting to manifest more and more. But in Chicago, the nuclear blast that's been set off has basically lowered the amount of magic in the city. It has created a background count where magic doesn't work as well. We'll come onto that more when it's mentioned. But this has separated the spirits from the flesh forms that they've manifested. So a lot of the insect spirits have gone into torpor, but they can be reactivated by magic around them. So people casting spells and Shadowrunners walking around with active spell locks to enhance themselves can activate the insect spirits and make things far worse. A really interesting idea that the power you've got has major effects in this area. So, the magical city, it talks about the background count. Present the bugs, the big bomb, and every kind of little kind of fallout have shaken things up. So, later on, we've got the Games Master section, which actually gives us the stats for it, but all target numbers are increased for magic. We've got bug stuff. We've got the metaplane busy signal. There's some problem getting through to the metaplanes from the zone these days. This is some kind of after effect of the big blast. As I said, the technological factor of a nuclear bomb has kind of destroyed magic a bit in the zone. Toxic totems. We've got the insects themselves. Where do they come from? Why are they here? What do you need to know? Talks about hives, which is something that hadn't really been mentioned with insect spirits before when they were first introduced in the grimoire. They were very lone creatures, but they're much more like aliens out of the movies Alien and Aliens, where there's large nests of these hideous creatures, part insect, part human. So we've got true and flesh forms detailing what they are. And then we start to go through the different types. So there's ant spirits, there's beetle spirits, cicadas, fireflies, flies themselves, mantis spirits. We've got a few colour plates. I'm not actually the biggest fan of these. These are very stylized. I'd much preferred just a really technical illustration of the different types of insect forms so we could really see what they were like. They're nice enough. I like the borders around them especially. They're very grungy, very in style for a post-apocalyptic version of Shadowrun. But I would much rather have more useful images for a Games Master. We've got mosquitoes. We've got roaches. Wasp spirits. Then we're on to detailing about Bug City. So we go through the various areas. We've got the core. Truman Tower, the big corporation that brought lots of investment into Chicago, their headquarters. And what's happened to a multinational corporation when its headquarters are stuck inside a containment zone? Members of the family that run or own the corporation are missing. It's one of the interesting ideas and one of the things that players can definitely get involved in. So we've got Mitsuhama Computer Technologies, Yamatatsu, going through different areas. Daily Gardens, the Dodger, Ghoul Town. So as I mentioned before, ghouls, because they're magical creatures, are actually pretty good at noticing human-looking insect spirits, but they're also really good at affecting insect spirits because they can attack them as they are magical beings themselves. And that means the ghouls, because ghouls in Shadowrun are people infected with a disease who need to eat flesh, but they're not necessarily bad people. They can eat corpses, which to us is horrific, but is it any worse really than us eating dead cows in our burgers? So we go through different areas and bits of history, things which have been happening in the areas, firefights, what mundane defences have been set up, the magical defences in Ghoul Town, the population. Because obviously the ghouls, some of them are quite happy to take people in and look after them. They were people before they were infected and became ghouls, whereas others have been picked on their entire lives and are like, well, the humans can look after themselves, or the metahumans. So in different areas, Leo's Lunchbox, Little Earth, the Shattergraves, the Sanctum Haven. There's different areas, Wind Transit Terminal, the Wrigley Dome, a haven where the government was bringing help in, but obviously everything's been cut off now. Different gangs, the Nasty Girls, the Swamp Things, different warlords. So we've got Catherine the Terrible and King Vlad, King of the Orcs. And then we're onto the Games Master section, where we actually come on to rules stuff. So it tells you how to use it, how to Games Master stuff, what the outside world thinks is going on, because the government's feeding a story about a virus escaping. They've not told people about the insect spirits. We've got the timeline of what happened, what the wall is, and different ways in, whether you're going through on land, how the security guards watch climbers, where the towers are, what guards are there, what is over water in the ether, counterforce teams, what other assets are available. Then we've got the shadow markets. So what ways you've got of buying things in a world where money is useless. It says here, for all intents and purposes, Union is worthless inside the containment zone. Because they're cut off for the internet, your electronic money is totally useless. We've got game information, so availability indexes for getting access to things. Radiation hazards, because obviously a nuclear bomb was set off. Prolonged exposure, direct exposure. We've got the insect totems themselves, so it goes through all of them. Insect classifications, their social patterns, summoning insect spirits. And then we've got the stats for the different ones. So an ant spirit soldier true form, ant spirit soldier flesh form, ant queens. And through the same with beetles, cicadas, fireflies, mantises, flies, mosquitoes, roaches, wasps, and then their special powers, their paralyzing touch, their pestilence, where they can share minds. It goes through spider totems, because spider is slightly different to the rest of the insect totems, because spiders aren't an insect. Okay, I get that. I misspoke. But spider prey, it hunts and kills insects. But spiders are one of the types of animals, because obviously you get dog totem, bear totem, etc. Well, spider is one of those, and it's generally clustered in as one of the more evil ones. We've got things here, the insect torpor, the background count, explaining what the background count does and what effects it has. So, what happens when you're trying to conjure? And then on to the movers and shakers, Kyle Teller, who is the main character in Burning Bright, and Ravenheart, one of the other major characters, and Seeks the Moon, who was formerly Kyle Teller's spirit, but in Burning Bright he virtually gets killed and loses control of the spirit. But they are friends more than they are servant master. So Seeks the Moon still helps out. Go through lots of other characters. Melissa Truman, so one of the children of the Truman family, which runs the large Truman Corporation. We've got ghouls here, the people who run Ghoul Town. And then at the back, we've got the Index, and a rather nice map of the Chicago Containment Zone. Nice coloured, indicating all the territories within it and who controls it. Very, very useful.
So that was Bug City for Shadowrun 2nd edition, and that won the poll with a resounding 39%, and I'm so glad you voted that way, because I've got a real connection with that book. When I was travelling the world by myself, I was in a very strange place, and then I'm reading these books, the novelization Burning Bright and Bug City, where the Shadowrun world, a world I absolutely adore, was changing as well. And that's kind of stuck with me through the years. Bug City just stands out as being far more emotional to me than other books, but probably because where I was. So thank you for letting me cover that book. Now, the other things in the poll, second place came Infantry Weapons of the World for Twilight 2000. It wasn't as close as I thought, because I thought it'd be a real tie between those two, but that got 21%, so quite a bit behind. And even further behind, we had the Star Drive Arms and Equipment Guide on 17%, and Lunar Rising for Aeon Trinity, and the Reformation Coalition Equipment Guide for Traveller the New Era, both on 12%. So it was very much tied between the two, but it was a much bigger lead for Bug City, which for the early part of the poll was over 50%. So, this week we clear the poll once again, and we're getting onto the bottom shelf over there. As I've been working my way up this bookcase and down that one, we've reached the bottom shelf. Not the end of the polls base this one, because I've still got two shelves over here, which are going to be way more random, because these are things I've been given, so I'm not really that knowledgeable about them, so it's going to be a real surprise for me. But the bottom shelf over here is my Star Wars collection. So everything in the poll this week's Star Wars. Now, the first one, we've got the Truce at Bakura sourcebook, which is chronologically the first book after Battle of Endor. Released by Bantam Books in the very early stages, ran about the same time as the Thrawn trilogy. Truce at Bakura details how the remnants of the Empire and the victorious Rebel Alliance get summoned because a new alien threat is coming into the galaxy. A kind of idea they did later with the whole Yuuzhan Vong invasion, and this was a very early idea of creating a very alien species which the humanoids, the rebels and the Empire could come together, so they form a truce. It's quite an interesting source book, but it shares a lot in common with the other source books around about that era. We've got Flashpoint Brack Sector, which is the only request out of these selection. Somebody really asked me to do this one. It's detailing a particular sect within the Empire and how things are going. We've got the Death Star Technical Companion, which is a decent enough book, but it's not as exciting as it sounds. We've got Starships of the Galaxy. Varying from the Wizards of the Coast Star Wars, this is one for the Wizards of the Coast Star Wars. So this came out in 2001 and is a Starships guide. And finally, what would be my choice would be Goroth, Slave of the Empire. Now this details a world and star system under control of the Empire, and really was useful to me as a games master in detailing what a conquered world under the absolute boot of the Empire was like. It's one of the best books, and it's by Nigel D. Findlay, who is one of my favourite role-playing game authors, who was sadly taken from us at the age of only 35. So we never got to see much from him, but the stuff he did for Shadowrun and for Star Wars and other games was just phenomenally good. So this would be my choice. I know the Death Star one's tempting you to click on vote for it, but this is the one I'd really recommend you go for. But we'll see how it goes. I've put that into the text of the poll as well, so we'll see how many people read it and go with my recommendation. So, other channel-rated stuff, I've nothing much. I've been going on for absolutely ages. This is going to be one of my longest videos for a while. So I'd better just shut up. I've whittled on for far too long already. So thank you very, very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.